Alright, this is adoption part 2. Let's get into the details now, like reactive attachment, PTSD, and so on and so forth, about the mental health of a child that might go through these things, the way that they may react, and the things that you may do to help them a little bit better. Let's get into it as soon as we can, because we only got about 45-50 minutes, guys, so let's get into this. So let's first start with reactive attachment disorder. Now, everybody has a different way of experiencing these symptoms on their own. Everybody has their own ways of doing it. So the way that I felt reactive attachment was not able to make close personal relationships due to not having the love and support at a younger baby age. Now think about it this way. If I was to put it in perspective, let's say you didn't have your parents. Let's say you didn't you lost them, something, right? You went to foster care and they didn't hold you, they didn't give you the bottle, they didn't give you the care and understanding and the love and everything that you need as a child to develop properly in the love and care that you're supposed to be in. Reactive attachment really gets in the way of that. Because of not having my parents as a young age, losing them at age 2 and stuff like that, it really made it hard for me to get attached. That's why the attachment disorder, get it? Reactive attachment disorder. So it's different than just trying to say, oh, I'm going to be friends with you. No, this is different. Reactive attachment disorder is based on the fact of a younger baby age development with love and care and nourishment and nurturement as well. Like you can't just let a flower grow without water. You start it as a seed, and yes, it can do it on its own if it's got the water, but you gotta feed it. You can't just think it's going to happen right naturally. It takes work, it takes finesse, it takes a lot of care, and reactive attachment really makes it difficult for even people who are trying to be close to someone to be actually close to someone. See, it's not, reactive attachment is not just about like you as a person, as a parent. It's also as the child develops itself as well. So having the love and care, having the support, and it means everything to that child to develop properly, to know what love and affection is, and how to understand it properly. Reactive attachment disorder is actually difficult for some people to understand because they don't understand how it happens. Well, let's put it back into perspectives of you being a child. If you didn't have love, compassion, and care, and everything else in between, how are you supposed to develop properly? And I mean that, develop properly. You can say anything you want right now, but in reality, you can't develop properly if you don't have the means or the support to show you it. I mean, think about it this way. If like a plant, if you were to not give it light, if you were to not give it water, the food, the things it needs to support itself, do you really think it can function, it can grow, it can actually build itself up and grow into a great flower or plant or anything, even a tree? Think about a mustard seed. If you didn't take a mustard seed and you didn't plant it right, how could you even know what to do with that? You're stuck in a phase where everything just seems to be bleak and you don't know what anything is. And reactive attachment disorder really puts you a far place away from people. And I think that's what made the most hardship for me, is because I wanted that family, and I still do, but I wanted that family, and I was willing to do everything I could for it. And it's like, you don't understand what you have until it's gone. And sometimes with my way of reactive attachment was, pushing away the people I love the most. And it's not the fact that I wanted to. It's the fact of The matter is I didn't have the love and care I needed. And while we can speculate on things and say that, oh, it's impossible to really understand what it's from. Well, speak in my terms. Okay, if you have reactive attachment disorder, like it doesn't just affect the life in the sense of right when it happens. It also affects the life in the future. Reactive attachment disorder, or reactive attachment disorder, or RAD, is a rare, severe mental health condition that affects childhood or children who have experienced significant neglect or abuse in their early years. Now, that's a definition of what I'm looking at on the laptop. Okay, but that's just that's like reading out of a textbook. You don't know, because it affects everybody differently. It affects everybody differently. And reactive attachment, for me, was very hard to get close, get comfortable, get attached to people, get the love and care I wanted, because I didn't know what I was looking for. Now, reactive attachment can subside over the years. I'm not reading this from a laptop. I'm reading this from my own, because literally for me it has. Yes, it's hard sometimes to still make relationships and hardships and stuff like that, but in reality, I am more mature now because of what I went through than I was, or that I will be in the future. Okay, so it's a continuous work. It's not just a one-time deal and you're done. So reactive attachment is not just difficult for the parents themselves, it's also very difficult for the child as well. It's very difficult for the child. And if you want to try to fix it, the best thing to do is just try to show the support you can and be patient with the child, because there's nothing you personally can do to fix that. It's a mental health quality that's based on the fact of neglect and abuse and whatever else that is going on in the person's life, okay? It's not something you did. If you're adopting somebody, don't look at reactive attachment as a personal thing, because it's not your fault. What happened before you adopted the child? Do you think it was abuse, or do you think it was the fact of neglect? Because how long were they in the foster care? How long were they in the orphanage? How long were they, wherever they were, wherever you found them? How long were they there? Okay? You understand? It's not you. But mending it can happen pretty easily. Now, we'll get into that on part 3, but let's move on to PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. It's in which a patient is traumatized to a surreal type mindset, afraid of loud noises, raise of hand towards another, and so on and so forth. If you've been abused, PTSD it can be from sexual, it can be from physical, it can be from emotional, it can be from anything. PTSD doesn't have to be just from verbal or physical abuse. It can be from anything. The person may not even have PTSD. People come from war with PTSD. Did they get abused or anything? No, but they have it because of what they saw. It's mainly the visual, auditorial, and sometimes even physical response to what they've seen or heard. It's not something that they can control themselves. And PTSD is very difficult for some people, because it can intervene on a daily basis and even on a timely basis. Let's say, anxiety and PTSD and depression kind of go in cahoots here. But we're going to stick with PTSD for right now. But depression, it causes the PTSD to be worse. Okay, and so does RAD. When the depression happens in reactive attachment disorder, it makes it worse. Anxiety helps it to be like a fire. Okay, you're putting gasoline on a fire. Okay, PTSD, RAD, and depression, anxiety is like putting all these chemicals together and thinking it's not going to explode. You know what I mean? Post-traumatic stress disorder can cause also chemical dependency, being on medications. I'm on medications. I have several medications I take for my mental health, and I have to, or else I'm not, able to really control my PTSD or anything else that I have going on that we're going to get through. But if you can understand this, PTSD is like, okay, how about this? How about we do this? You take a mango, right? You throw it against the wall. Do you think that mango is going to come back together by itself? No. It takes time, finesse, glue, a lot of things to bring it back together. PTSD is that shattered part of the soul. You gotta realize everybody has a soul. Everybody has an understanding of what the world is around them. Even kids, they may not fully understand, but they know that there's good people and they know that there's bad people. But PTSD really gets in the way of a lot of things. It gets in the way of cooking even, let's say. Let's say the sizzle happens, right? And there's a pop. You have, let's say, too much oil in there. And you might have a little too much salt, so it pops. And it makes that loud noise. Well, what's the first thing that happens to somebody with PTSD? They first get scared because they think that, oh my goodness, it's going to happen again. This is when it happened before, it's going to happen again. That's what PTSD is. It's the thought of being in the same place where you've been before that caused you to have this traumatization. It's not about the fact of, I mean, it is kind of involved with other people. Because it is how people treat you, how you treat people, it really does affect the way that PTSD does work. Okay, so for me, the way to get really past the PTSD is doing what I did like in part 1, and that's just opening up and trying to get the help you need. Not that I'm asking for help. I'm trying to more like inform people about the situations that can happen in an adoption type of setting and the things that can happen because of those situations. So reactive attachment, PTSD. Now, here's one that more so came at a later age, but I'm still working on, and that's some people go into a more comfortable mental health mindset by having this. So, ready? Schizoaffective bipolar disorder. So let me read you what I wrote about it, okay? Not able to confront mental health directly. The patient has auditory and visual hallucinations that portray something that is not there. We hold dear to protect ourselves from the things that have happened or that might happen. They struggle with reality. They want something different, not to feel what they have or are going through. So pretty much putting themselves in a mindset that literally just makes them obsolete, okay? Makes them different, you know, and it can go both ways. It can go positive and negative. But schizoaffective mainly is a negative response to PTSD mainly. So though I was not in war, my schizoaffective bipolar was, I had visual and auditory hallucinations about war. I mean, like, Minneapolis getting attacked. I mean, I was imminent that it was going to happen. I was imminent that I saw bombs flying. I on the way to the hospital, I thought that the ambulance was going to explode because there was bombs flying behind us. I mean, it was really intense. And for each person, it can be just as intense or more. So you got to be very careful with this schizoaffective part. Bipolar is more of chemical reaction to schizoaffective. Bipolar can cause you to go up or down, and that's also depends on the depression and anxiety as well. Depression and anxiety can also affect the schizoaffective bipolar, causing it to be worse or better depending on what the anxiety or what the depression may be. So let's just move on to this one though. Fetal alcohol syndrome. This is when your mother is pregnant and has a tendency to drink or smoke while doing so, causing birth defects that may cause developmental issues and irregular emotions. I wrote that. That's not something I read offline. Okay? I wrote that. So I know what I'm talking about. And they found at age 15 doing a facial structure, something. I forgot what it was exactly, but it was through therapy. And then what they did is they measured my face to see if I had fetal alcohol syndrome. And based on what they found, I did. So that means that I have also developmental issues, which I was in special education when I was in high school. So I wasn't fully in like a normal high school. I wasn't able to function as good. I mean, my functionality, like my IQ was high, but my actual functionality after fetal alcohol syndrome was low. So my emotions, my mood, my feelings, my reactions were all just a big disarray because I had fetal alcohol syndrome. And it causes that because it's a chemical compound. If you think about putting wine on a rose, do you really think wine is what the rose needs? No. To make a rose grow, you need water. You need the proper nutrition and proper nourishment. And the sun too. But what I'm saying is, with fetal alcohol syndrome, even before the person is born, the young child is born, the mother is intently doing something to better herself without noticing the backdrops of what it could cause to the child within her womb. So listen to this. Fetal alcohol syndrome is real. It's not something you can just think will go away either. It's a lifetime workmanship. It's something like schizoaffective. It's kind of like PTSD. You got to work on it. You got to do EMDR. You got to do the therapy. And fetal alcohol syndrome is the same way. But with fetal alcohol syndrome, there's not more of something you can do physically for the person. Well, besides being affectionate and supportive towards them, but also fetal alcohol syndrome, it also like affects everyday living. So developmental issues can include like putting on clothes, taking a shower, cooking, just some of the things. Even going to school can be hard. Being around other people, it's difficult. And fetal alcohol syndrome is just a minor factor of what's going on in my life. But I just wanted to bring it up because it's important in any adoption that you have an understanding of what goes on in the chemical compound of a body when somebody does this to a child, And hear it this way. A mother could be even drinking without even knowing she's pregnant. But I would say if you're going to have intercourse or any sexual relationship and you think you're going to be pregnant, do not, and I mean it, do not drink, do not smoke, do not do anything to jeopardize the child's care. Reactive attachment disorder and fetal alcohol syndrome can go hand in hand. With fetal alcohol syndrome, even though I didn't know I had fetal alcohol syndrome until I was 15, I know I had reactive attachment disorder. But fetal alcohol syndrome can explode that. Okay, think about it like this. If you put a TNT in a rock, a small rock, roughly about 8 pounds, do you think it's going to just break apart like a regular rock, or do you think it's going to explode into shrapnel? It's the same thing. Fetal alcohol syndrome and reactive attachment disorder together can be the same way. Deadly. All you need to do is just be patient. All you need to do is just be patient. And especially if you have a child who has fetal alcohol syndrome, the one thing I recommend is you just try to give them the best life you can. Okay? And I know from my own past that I haven't had that. Okay? I haven't had supports and people who were willing to help me with all this. Yes, I had that somewhat, but it wasn't to the intent of a family matter. Now, with fetal alcohol syndrome, it is a family matter. You have two people coming together to create a life. You need to make that choice as a mother. You need to make that choice as a father to be who you want to be, the best for your son or daughter, whoever is in that womb. There's no reason for you to be drinking or smoking or anything while having a child. And even though you may not know, it doesn't matter. All right, now how about we move on to this? Borderline OCD, or OCD in general, obsessive compulsive disorder, doing things over and over, like washing hands multiple times, is a way of controlling self, possessions, or others. OCD is not just a compulsive thing. It's also about control. Some people, such as myself, I've used OCD as a way of control. So like my house, it's clean, it's orderly, I have things my way, but that's my apartment, so who would say otherwise, right? Well, with an obsessive compulsive disorder, meaning in this sense, where we're talking about adoption, it means that they want control over their life. And that's the thing. Sometimes you got to go into these things and you got to realize that you can do whatever you want to the child, but if they don't want to, they're not going to. Remember, each of us, each human being has a choice to make on a daily basis, on a minutes basis, on a seconds basis. We make those choices. And with OCD, it can become an obsessive compulsive disorder in a sense to where you're doing it over and over again and not even really thinking about it. But in reality, most obsessive compulsive disorders happen because of control. Having or not having control doesn't matter. It means that the person that wants that control, has that control. Now, let's move on to depression, because I'm on 21 minutes here and 30 seconds. Depression is a constant feeling of defeat and worry. Depression doesn't just happen by accident. It happens because somebody got hurt. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it may be. It's not a fact of just choosing to be depressed. Sometimes it's a, how do I say this? It's a chronic depression. Like, have you ever heard of chronic depression? I don't know if you have. But if you have, depression and chronic depression are pretty similar. Chronic depression, though, is caused over years and years of maltreatment, and it's something that just, it's embedded in that person. It can't be, it's like wiring a computer and telling it to do something else when it can't. You gotta take, depression is mainly a sense of just not feeling worthwhile. Not feeling worthwhile. Hear that again. Not feeling worthwhile. And mainly the reason why most people don't feel worthwhile is because of the things they've gone through. Think of part one. What have I gone through? I mean, I'm surprised I don't have more depression now than I did back then. But now I'm better, I'm great, I'm doing wonderful. I mean, not the best, I still got things to work on, but who doesn't? We have a whole life to work on things. But feeling defeated or worry or it's something that you just can't, it's not something you can just change. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of finesse, it's a lot of building structure, positive structure, positive, everything. I mean, it's like building a tower. You think it's going to get done on its own? No, you got to do it. You got to work on it. It's not something that you can just say is done in one time. It takes a lifetime sometimes to get over depression, and with the way that I've gone through it, it's not easy. I mean, think about the ways that I've gone through my life. I mean, with part one, all this negativity. How are you supposed to find something so positive if you have all this negativity around you? How? You know what I mean? It's hard. And let's move on to anxiety real quick. Always on top of everything at once, or not enough to do. So anxiety can come in different ways, and severities as well too. So it can be chronic anxiety, it can be just petty anxiety, or you can have just anxiety, general anxiety disorder. And it's not just about being on top of everything. It's not the fact of being on top of everything, like, oh, I'm getting this done, getting this done. No, it's taking everything at once. That's the part that causes the most anxiety. You have all this information coming in, and you can't even imagine just how much stress it would cause on a person to, try to get all these things done. Like me, when I was younger in that foster home that wasn't licensed, I had anxiety every day because I thought I was going to get abused every day. You know? I woke up every day thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Today's a new day, but I feel like it's going to be the same thing as yesterday. And that includes depression as well. But, you know, anxiety is also provoked. Okay? It's not just something that just happens naturally also. It can be provoked. Somebody pushing you to do something, peer pressure, can cause anxiety. Smoking weed or doing drugs or doing alcohol at a young age that you're not supposed to. You know, those things, you know, you have that soft voice in your stomach's telling you no, but in your mind you're like, yeah, let's try this out, let's have some fun. But you see what I'm saying? It causes confused signals. So it causes anxiety because you just don't know what to do. So, I mean, these are some of the things that I've had, okay? These are some of the things that I've had. Reactive attachment disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, schizoaffective bipolar disorder, fetal alcohol syndrome, OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, and anxiety. Well, I'm kind of finished with my list right now for at least me. But we can go into more topics later on. I have another topic. I'm going to do part 3, which is when adopting, what to be ready for. But let's get to that in a couple minutes. But, okay, so with these kind of disorders and these kind of syndromes and stuff like that you just heard, the functionality of a child is very hard and confusing because they don't know what's going on. You know, you will have misunderstandings, you'll have depression, you'll have times when they want to do something to themselves, but you know, staying consistent and being the best you can for them and being supportive as much as you can to them is the only thing you can do. I mean, the major part that I had was reactive attachment disorder. It made me very obsolete. Like I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. You know, like, makes you feel like, you know, with that love and care that you don't have, how are you supposed to feel you belong? Okay? And then with the stuff that I've gone through, the PTSD, just think of all these disorders adding up on someone. It's like pulling a ton of bricks on their shoulders and asking them to keep walking. You know how hard that is? No. Most of you will say no. But if you did, you would know that it's not easy for anybody to go through this and actually be able to, you know, respond and survive and be in a great mood like you want them to be. And I feel bad for the child because it's like they really care. They really want that love, but it's hard to get there because they just don't know what they're looking for. So I ask you, as human beings, as mother and father, as grandma and grandpa to your grandkids, you just remember that, you know, your life too. You may not remember all of it, but remember, you went through tough times. Who helped you? Who put a bandage on your scab when you scabbed your, you know, knee? Who hugged you when you were crying? You know what I'm saying? Like, all these things matter. It's not just about these labels that I have. It's about the fact that all these things collide. And the worst part is all these things make a surreal type mindset. It's not something they can control. Just think about this. If you were with these disorders and syndromes and whatever else you want to call it, do you think you'd be able to walk around like you are today? Honestly, think about it. Do you think you, being through what I've been through, having the syndromes, the disorders that I do you feel you could survive that long? Especially 31 years of this. Now, believe me, this is difficult to talk about, and I'm kind of anxious at the moment because I have so much that I want to talk about. But you know, it's all a means of you. It doesn't. What you do with your child is what's going to make them great in the future. Okay? Nothing that you do right now can change that. So make sure you make the best you can out of what you can. You know? Your children only have so much time. You only have so much time. Don't you want to see your grandkids? Don't you want to see your great-grandkids? I mean, seriously, think about it. We all long for that. We all long for love. We all long for affection. We all long for understanding. We all long for this. We all do. Some of us find it in early ages. Some of us find it in later stages. You know what I mean? It's just, it happens. Nothing's perfect. Give me a second. I'm going to drink water. All right. So, if I'm saying anything is, learn. Not from your mistakes, because you may have not made them yet. But take it from somebody who's lived through this. Take it from somebody who has these disorders, these syndromes, and everything in between. It's not easy to talk about, because it's taking initiative to know that you are wrong in the way you're thinking. You are wrong in the way you're doing things. OCD it may be a great thing for some people, keeping their house clean, but in other means it's a control. Obsessive is a control. Obsessive compulsive disorder is controlling self, possessions, or others. What if you have to give somebody knucks every time you see them, you know? That's a control. What if you gotta hug somebody every time you see them? It's not really control, but at the same time, if you think about it, in a way, it is still control. No, it doesn't mean you're actually putting your hand on them and telling them what to do, but in a way, you're telling them that you love them, you care for them. In a way, you're controlling them by showing grace and honesty and care. So all I ask you, before I pray here and finish this off, all I ask you to do is just learn from this. Learn from me, from the person that went through this. It's hard. And I look at the children in my church, and I wish the best for them, because I know they can do it. But I also pray for the kids who can't be there. Like me, who wasn't there, who didn't have a church, who didn't have a family. And I'm thankful for all that I have. But, you know what I mean? You can make the change. And let me tell you, the more you have in numbers, the better. The more support you have for this child with these problems, the better. Don't walk away. Don't let them do this on their own. And we'll get into the recommendations and when adopting and stuff like that on part 3. But don't let them do this alone. Okay? They create these OCD. They create the schizoaffective because it's something they have to put up with. They try to avoid the things that they have gone through to better themselves, thinking that they have control. And schizoaffective, in a sense, is control over their mind. They're persuading their reality into something that they wish was better. Yet my persuasion of schizoaffective was really bad. I mean, I had bombs going off. I mean, I thought everything was going to go crazy. But think about it. It can be a good thing too, though. Some people who have schizoaffective or schizophrenia are not all bad. Have you seen the movie Beautiful Mind? He was a great mathematician. But he had problems. He had developmental problems. He thought he was helping the world, but in reality, he was making a mess. In a way, he was creating his own world to put up with what he was going through in his mind. By creating that little kid, by creating that friend, he did it. No one else. His mind did it. He did it. Now, sometimes you can develop schizoaffective disorder like I did at a later age, but in reality, schizoaffective it can be any age. It can even be with reactive attachment disorder. If you think about it, somebody could be born, or especially with fetal alcohol syndrome. If you have fetal alcohol syndrome, can you really control what you're doing or thinking? No. Especially when you're in a mother's womb. You could be developing such problems and hazards that you just don't know. That's why I plead to people is, listen, this is not a game. This is someone's life you're messing with. This is someone's life. Just remember that. So I'm going to pray quick, and then we're going to get on to part 3 here in a minute. And you guys can hear all the different parts whenever you feel like on YouTube. And I'll leave my notation of how to get in contact with me. There's also a link on the top of my channel to make sure you can read about me more if you want, and about my rapping and stuff like that. But mostly I wanted to create these podcasts to help people. To help people understand how a child develops in his early or her early stages with these types of situations. I mean, it's not easy for a child to come out and just talk about it. Let me tell you, when I first started my therapy on all this, especially EMDR, I was crying. I was like, I don't want to put up with it. I don't want to go through it. Why would you want to replay that? You know, and that's PTSD. You want to get past it. But PTSD keeps bringing it up and making you feel depressed, defeated, worried, anxious. Like you have nothing to do, or you have everything to do at once. I mean, come on. You know, if you were to just sit in my shoes today, you would know what I mean. But all I can do is express based on what I know and how I can better express it to you. So let's pray. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for this Sunday morning with the wonderful preaching and everything, the praising of you, Lord. Please let this be music to someone's ears. Let them hear this and learn so that they can better understand what their child is going through, if that's what it is. I know some people will laugh at me, but Lord, as long as I'm telling the truth, who cares? I know that when I say this, I know I'm saying the truth. So Lord, please protect everybody as they're listening to this. Please give them the guidance so that they can get through it and understand it for not just themselves, but the future generations that they may have. Father, thank you for the wonderful blessings you have given us. And I ask you all this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.